In this lecture, I'm going to talk more about the requirements files. So if you're already familiar with Python requirements files, feel free to skip this lecture. So we have this requirements directory with two requirements files inside it. Let's start with the requirements.txt file. We have some comments at the top explaining some of the choices we've made here, and then from line 4 onwards, starting with NumPy, we define the dependencies of our project, as well as the version numbers of each of these dependencies, which we were willing to accept, so which are compatible with our particular package. Now, these versions all adhere to what's known as semantic versioning. Semantic versioning looks like this. You have a major version, followed by a period, followed by the minor version, followed by a period, followed by what's known as a patch version. And for a well-maintained package, you'd expect that a minor version increment does not break the API, and a major version increment is likely to break the API. But you have to be a bit careful because some less well-maintained packages may actually introduce breaking changes even in a minor version bump. So what we've done in our requirements.txt file is play it quite conservatively. We're saying that anything for NumPy greater than version 1.20.0, but it has to be less than version 1.21. So we're not allowing any minor version increases here. And it's up to you in your projects how much risk you want to take. We can install all of these requirements with the command pip install -r requirements txt like so, and that will begin installing. I'm going to cancel that for now. And then we also have a test requirements.txt file, and this syntax at the top just means that we're going to install everything in requirements.txt as well as these. So it's a way of just capturing everything in another requirements file. And we've split the requirements into these two files because there will be scenarios where we don't actually need to install these test requirements, because these are only required when we want to test our package or when we want to run style checks, linting, and type checks. These two files are really important. If we don't define which versions of our dependencies we expect, then it can result in our package becoming very brittle and broken. The most basic error in a package would be that you didn't have a requirements.txt file. That would just mean that when somebody else tried to install and use the package, it would fail because it wouldn't have its necessary dependencies. A more likely scenario, though, is that we neglect to include a version, and if there is no version specified, pip is just going to assume you want the latest version of a particular dependency, and it may well be that that version has progressed and it's released new features, a new major version perhaps, and it's got breaking changes in the API, and that means that your package, or our package in this case, is going to break. So it's really important for us to define these versions. This requirements.txt approach to managing our project's dependencies is probably the most basic way of doing dependency management in Python. Nothing wrong with it at all. Many of the biggest Python open source projects out there use this exact approach. However, just to avoid confusion, if you're working in a project that uses a different dependency manager, like let's say Poetry or Flit or pipenv, then the file used to define dependencies changes depending on which dependency manager you're working with, but the principle of defining your dependencies and specifying the version ranges remains the same across all of the tools. So focus on the principle, not so much on the exact syntax.